4 years ago, we said, well, how can I change this mentality? How can I get these people to be committed, to want to do better, to want to care about their kids' progress and results and actually seeing things, not just, okay, here's my 9 to 6, I'm out the door. And I realized it can't, like I was just saying, it can't be just through financial reward because I can't give them raises every year. So I wanted to see how it works. So I said, well, what if we had what I noticed most preschools, 1, 2, 3, 4-year-olds or, pre-K don't have is, let's set up like kind of like a pedagogy. Let's have a theory. Let's have a method. Let's have a philosophy for us and for our teachers that we could say, this is us.
Welcome back to another episode of the Inside Japan podcast. I'm Charlie, and as usual, this podcast is sponsored by JobsinJapan.com, the best place on the internet to find your next job in Japan. On this episode, I'm speaking with Kenn Gale, head of school for No Borders International Schools in Nagoya, where I used to live. In this episode, we talk about the struggles of keeping good teachers, about having a real pedagogy as an English school as opposed to just being edutainment, and about the future of education in Japan. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Kenn, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, Charlie. Thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about your school. You are the head of school of No Borders International School in Tokai, and there's 6 schools that you're running now. So first of all, I want to know, what was it like starting a school like that in the area that you're starting? Was it something that was really difficult? Did you do it all yourself, or did you have a lot of help along the way?
No, actually, when I took it over, I didn't actually start it up. No Borders started about 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
In downtown Nagoya as an adult English school. And it had done that for, 10, 15 years, was very successful. The owner at that time realized there was a growing demand, even though it was very slow 15 years ago, for the international English schools and preschool markets there. Before the parents took their kids into the hoikuens and yochiens, they realized they're 1, 2, 3 years old sitting at home. It's a good time to get some English. So we started 2 small international preschools. And when I joined, that's where we were at. We had still the adult division, which was very minor at that time. We kind of switched focus. And we had 2 international preschool locations when I came on board with the team about 10, 11 years ago now.
Wow. So what was the most difficult thing when you started that and when you started working on that? What was the most difficult thing was it like getting new students, or was it hiring the right kind of people? Like, what was the biggest challenge that you had at the beginning?
I think at that time it was uncharted territory for Japanese families. So we had the students, they were coming, the trial lessons we weren't doing hardly any advertising. It was all word of mouth or just our basic locations, which weren't great, but they were strategically placed in like good areas, at least that, the demographics were proper for what you needed. So we really didn't focus on, advertising or anything like that. Our website was very basic at the time, no direct marketing, no landing pages, nothing like that. So at that time, there was, I believe, a staff of about 10 foreigners working for us, and probably 20 Japanese teachers. We have a very common, very normal system of a Japanese teacher and the English teacher. Mm-hmm. They co-teach in the classroom.
Right.
So that was our mix when I took over. I think the hardest thing at that point was the fact that I had kind of inherited a staff of people that had been there, some of them for a while, some of them not so long, because, like I said, that they had just started the international preschools at that time. And we were already in the process then of getting the 3rd one up and running. Mm-hmm. So it was, that was probably the most difficult thing. It's challenging to manage, human resources and team development and leadership is probably one of the most demanding things I feel, especially for a foreign market overseas, because we have to deal with people who the turnover rate is high, their experience and background is typically not necessarily English or much less teaching. On top of that, a lot of them need extra support. They don't understand the Japanese culture. Japan is, as a beautiful and amazing country as it is, it's very hard to assimilate into it being a foreigner, especially a Westerner. It's not like a lot of other Asian countries. You can just, Thailand or Southeast Asia is very sabai and relaxed. You can just kind of mesh into it. So all those things cause sometimes a tense or stressful environment. And now you're going to throw children into it. Preschoolers, crying, calling for their mom and dad and diapers and all that kind of stuff. So that was the most challenging thing right off the bat, and has proved to continue on, up through today. It's just
I mean, I've heard the same thing from we've had a few other school owners on here, and it seems like a lot of people get into a school sort of moving from being a teacher into a school environment, and they want to grow a business, they want to improve their school, but the biggest difficulty is trying to find really good teachers. So on Jobs in Japan, we have a section for like certified teachers where we can kind of push more qualified people. But I think the overwhelming majority of foreigners in Japan maybe don't even, they don't have a TEFL certificate. They don't have any kind of qualifications in English at all. They just come from, America or the UK or Australia, a native English speaking country. And I think that must be a real problem, because you never necessarily know like who you're hiring. Like their qualifications might seem kind of low for what you're expecting, right?
Yeah, it is. Especially, I always tell people when they're interviewing, education is a low paying industry around the world. Americans always hear in the news, teachers are protesting, they're going on strike, or the unions are rising. It's not the educators don't nearly make what they should, considering the responsibility and the tasks that are laid before them, especially with the support, at least in America, that they get. It's not nearly enough. So as I always say, it's a low paying industry, even though it's an extremely rewarding one, but financially. On top of that, I happen to be in the younger learners market. Younger learners, let's say 1 to elementary, junior high. And not just an international school, not just at an English-speaking school, but even again, once around the world, those markets require less certification. So with that, in a industry that's not known for making people rich, the younger learners are on the bottom of that scale, typically, because you don't have to have that master's. You don't have, like in the States, you can get your degree and then you can get your teacher certification and you can teach. So that's what I deal with a lot. I deal with a lot of people that just, happen to graduate. They have a degree in, business, a lot of IT, a lot of different things, and they want to come to Japan. So they'll come over here and think they can teach just because they happen to speak English. So for me, most of the qualified ones that have that master's in education or master's in curriculum development or a teacher certificate, they're not typically coming to the younger learners market. They're going to go try to work directly for the Board of Education in the junior high or high school, or depending on the university, they can get some, individual gigs and piecemeal them together. So that's typically what they do. So I deal with a lot of those ones that just have a degree and they want to come over. Those are most of my applicants.
Great. So what do you do to motivate those kind of teachers then? Because obviously that's another problem, especially with international preschools, is that, teachers will come for a year or something and leave. And the parents don't like that, I think. I notice that a lot with parents is they like to have a more consistent, at least while their kid is there. And then especially they like it if, they have another kid. And, often in Japan, you find the people who send their kids to international schools tend to have more than one. And then they want to send their, Kato's little brother to the same school and have the same teachers if possible. So how do you keep people on if they're maybe just coming because they want to be in Japan?
Well, it's kind of a twofold answer, if I can remember both points, if I can get to it. One is we try to find people that are already, after we do the pre-screening, we try to get the qualified ones. Obviously, they have to have a degree. They have to have experience coming to us. We can't hire fresh, non-experienced anymore. There was a time we can do that and we could train them and develop them, but now we've reached the point to where we just can't, because we want to maintain the standard and the service, and it's very challenging to, as much as I come across some amazing people. But first, once we do the initial screening of experienced, degreed, all those kind of things, we try to find some people that are here for long term.
Okay.
That's number one, because if they're only here for a year or two, there's nothing that's going to motivate them except the intrinsic value or something they can get in return. There's not. So we're trying to get the people that do have a long-term plan. I love people that are married or planning on getting married or have kids or bought a house or have debt. I love people that this is their home.
Yeah.
Because the great thing is I feel at No Borders, we're able to do what, some schools and school owners that I've learned from have been able to do, but not a lot of them can, is actually provide a career. I know hundreds of teachers that I've met, and every year they're still checking out the website for jobs.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate. How would, I couldn't imagine being, unless I was in my young 20s again, but I couldn't imagine my age or even in 30s or late 20s, wondering where I'm going to work next year or thinking I don't like my job, so I got to keep looking. That would be just a terrible situation, especially if you're trying to make Japan your home and yet you still have to job hunt or at least keep your feelers out there. That doesn't provide much security. So we really tried to provide a career here to where if they come here, they don't have to look elsewhere.
Right.
At least for, a heck of a long time. And that's the one thing I always tell, No Borders is by no means, and I will stress this, and I stress this in our interviews because I am all about transparency. We are not perfect. With our company grew very quickly, and our infrastructure and head office and HR is much smaller than it technically should be. It's still done by, for example, this week is our school plays. Our kindergarten, so we rented theaters, we have these things going out, and yet as the principal and director of the school, I'm picking up the rental car, going to pick up the props and the trash and driving it around. No one's too good to do anything here. So we still don't even have the structure, the amount of staff that we should to help support our staff of 120 people. So we're not perfect, but we try to give somebody a career path, which is why I lost my train of thought there, which is why people don't leave us. We have people that have been with us 20 something years, 15 years, 10 years. I have a lot of people, of course, that have been here 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, but that's because as we've grown and added new lines or new locations, we've expanded. I think in all honesty, Charlie, in 10 years, I've had 2, maybe 3 people, if I'm forgetting, that have left my school or our company and gone to another local school.
That's really good.
I've had people leave, but because I have a great friend of ours leaving this week because she's finally going back to France because Corona has lessened. Or people have gone back home after they fulfilled a 3-year contract or something. But I've had, and actually one out of those 3 people, after they did leave because they got another offer down the street, kid you not, following Tuesday was having coffee with me asking for the job back.
Oh, wow.
And again, it's not because we're perfect. I mean, I know so many school owners in Nagoya, and we could drink ourselves to death going over our problems and stresses and things that we're doing wrong. But what makes us No Borders is truly our staff and what we try to provide for them because of what they're doing for us.
So what should people be on the lookout for if they're, say, for example, they're looking for a job, they're on a jobs board and they see, not only No Borders, they see all of these different jobs for preschools, dispatch companies, boards of education, whatever they're looking for. How do people actually, what are some hints that people could find to see like, oh, this is a place maybe I could make a career at? Because you don't always know until you get into the company that that's an option there. So is that something they can know by looking at a job description, or is that something that they should be asking about at the interview and doing their research on? How would people know that stuff? Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the conversation, and I just want to take a quick moment to mention that this podcast is only possible because of the support of JobsinJapan.com. So next time you're looking for a job, check out JobsinJapan.com. There are tons of jobs on there, not only in English teaching, but also software engineering, hospitality, marketing and consulting, among many others. Most of the jobs on the board do not require any specific level of Japanese, and you can get started in minutes. So next time you're looking for a job, check out JobsinJapan.com, and let's get back to the conversation.
Here's exactly what I say, because I'm very routine in what I do, especially after interviewing so often. I tell people every company looks good on paper and every employee looks good on the resume. no candidate's going to say, yeah, I'm pretty good. Honestly, I'm a little lazy in the afternoons. I kind of get tired. I kind of have a bad attitude.
Right.
And no company is going to be like, yeah, honestly, guys, we're a little unorganized. Like I just said, they typically don't. So I think it is intuition. You have to kind of tell when you're interviewing. Hopefully you have the wherewithal and kind of head on your shoulders to kind of get a vibe or a feel. But I would do whatever you can to go to the school, meet the managers, meet the other staff. What we do is what a lot of schools do nowadays, and I think is great, is we have them come. In fact, I just set one up about an hour ago before I met up with you, and they come to the school and spend the day with us. And I literally tell them, you're there to observe, be an active participant, and I want you to see how we do things. I want you to join our meetings. At lunchtime, we take them out. We don't take them out to lunch, but we sit down with them. The other staff, no management, no assistant managers there. And I tell them to talk to the other staff. And I tell them, ask, do you like No Borders? What's good? What's bad? How do you like Ken? Is he a jerk? Is he good? Is he bad? And we open those things, the good and the bad, because there is bad. There's no, perfect, company or school. I want them to know those things because, like you mentioned earlier, nothing is worse for an international school than a teacher leaving 2 months into the contract.
Yeah.
Here's why. That teacher will leave if they're not happy, because people do that. But that teacher's job that he's going to find, the only jobs that are going to be available into the school year are other companies that aren't good. That's why people left them. So I tell them, you're not going to get a good gig if you have to leave. And we're going to lose face to our customers. And I'm going to go crazy trying to schedule. So it's a lose-lose situation. So I want them to come. In fact, 1-2 days even, to really make sure, again, especially when my people are being with us 5, 10, 20 years, it's a great investment of time, especially for them. You can read a lot of reviews on different websites such as Glassdoor or whatnot. Knock on wood, we're not on there. But at the end of the day, those are just one person's opinion. We had 2 revelations at No Borders, let's say. As we're starting to get bigger, we did have the people, honestly, and most schools do, unless you're like an IB school or somebody that requires the master's degree or whatnot. But we had the people that were here in Japan originally because they had the draw or love of something else, anime, sushi, manga, whatever, so I had those. I inherited those staff members, and I also hired new ones along the road. Not everybody was that perfect candidate who was like, I want to teach, I love children. I wish, so most of them were that, even the ones that once we got real strict in the hiring and had to have experience. Sure, I was getting teachers that had 7 years international school experience at a well-renowned school. Wonderful, hire them. But originally, they still came to Japan because of something else. They just got really good at what they did and had good references and decided to come to No Borders or move to Nagoya from somewhere else. So we got lucky enough to hire those random ones. But still, the majority were not educators at heart. So once they got off at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it was onto their hobby, onto their love, their ninja skill study, or whatever it was that brought them here. It wasn't, hey, let's go home and grade papers or search YouTube channels on scaffolding and different pedagogies of education.
Right.
Which I wish, as if that ever happens.
I mean, that's what I did when I was struggling as a terrible teacher. I went home every day and I read up on the internet and tried to find new ways to teach, and that's that was one of the best things I ever did for my.
Well, where were you 10 years ago? I needed more people like you.
I mean, I end up I just got out of teaching this year. Or last year now, I guess. But when I was deep in the thick of it, I was like, I wanted to know. I wanted to improve my teaching because I cared about the students and I wanted them to get the best out of me. And I know a lot of people who they just, I mean, I've talked about this with other guests on the podcast before, where they'll find games that take up the whole class or as much of the class as possible, just so they can burn the time. And I feel like that's such
story time, or they'll justify YouTube videos and things. Yeah. And so what we did, because luckily your old manager probably appreciated you going home and studying. I wanted to try to get the mindset. I used to tell people, I said, I want to take you. You're at a bar. You're at what, Hub, right?
Mm.
Everybody knows Hub. So you're at Hub having a drink, and you meet another foreigner, and we want to make friends. We're a social bunch. And here's what I used to see in barter. This is what I did, and this is what a lot of people do. After a while talking 5 minutes, so what do you do? They all do the same thing. I'm a teacher, almost as a joking matter, because they expect everybody there to be teachers.
Yeah.
And it was really like, this is what I do because I'm speaking English, so therefore I teach English.
Right.
I never saw engineers do that. When two Toyota guys happen to be at a local izakaya, oh, what do you do? I'm an engineer.
Right.
No, they were professional. They were serious. Oh, I work at Toyota. I'm an engineer. Right. So I used to tell my staff, that's what I want to change the mentality. I want you to not have that I'm an English teacher or whatever kind of blowing it off, jovial attitude to, oh, I work at No Borders. I'm Ken. Nice to meet you. I work at such and such school. I teach English. I'm an educator.
Yeah.
I'm this, I'm that. Educator's pretty deep. I doubt they would say that, but I'm a teacher.
Right. Right.
And say it with a sense of pride rather than that comic relief that I used to see thrown around on a nightly basis.
I think it's also because it's expected. Like I've had Japanese people, when they say, hey, where are you from? What are you doing in Japan? Are you a teacher? Like that's how they'll ask me. Like they assume it. And what's been really interesting is since I've been doing, all of these other things, marketing and YouTube and all of this stuff, is that I'm able to say, I work in marketing or something. And they're like, oh, and it's kind of a different thing. But I did start to take pride in being a teacher when I started working for schools that I actually thought were doing really good work. I told them about the schools I was working at, and I was excited about the schools I was working at. And I think that's a really important thing. I don't like it when I meet teachers who are not proud of the work they're doing. And I feel like, if you're not proud of it, think what the kid's feeling,
Yep. And again, that's what I was going back to saying, that some of the milestones that we had that kind of broke that mentality a little bit. Mm-hmm. Was 4 years ago, I was kind of like, okay, how can I kind of push us over the limit? I can't give raises to 120 people every year what they want. All the foreigners always like, hey, can I get another ichiman, 5,000 yen, ichiman? And also if we had the average turnover rate, which in Nagoya is like 3 years, I could do that. I could start them at the average rate. Ichiman, see ya, and then restart. New person, 27, 28, 29, see ya, and then so on.
Yeah.
But people were staying with us. And so we had to get the expectation, hey guys, there is caps, there is this, you can't
after 10 years, you're paying a kindergarten teacher 380,000 yen a month, and you're in trouble.
It would be more than that even with some of our, and they kind of get that, but so there had to be an internal reward. It had to be things that just weren't monetary or this or that. So I wanted to give them something to kind of believe in or understand or be able to bite into. And what I realized we were doing is we were training people for our curriculum. So we hire you. Here is whether it was the Akayawa division or the preschool division or the kindergarten or the dispatch, No Borders has several divisions. We would get them in, sit them down, and have some really cool training sessions. This is the book. Here's how we do this. Then we'll do this game, and then we'll teach the phonics lessons. We suggest like this. We want to teach phonics using this pronunciation. We'd break it down. We'd have them observe and follow teachers for a few weeks. It wasn't great by any means, but it was a solid training program. But it was just based on the job at hand. Mm-hmm. 4 years ago, we said, well, how can I change this mentality? How can I get these people to be committed, to want to do better, to want to care about their kids' progress and results and actually seeing things, not just, okay, here's my 9 to 6, I'm out the door. And I realized it can't, like I was just saying, it can't be just through financial reward because I can't give them raises every year. And even that has proven, there's mounds of research how that just doesn't work unless you're in a very few industries like toy making. Every toy you get 10 cents more, or like sales where it's commission based. Mm-hmm. But most jobs, if you just pay more, doesn't equal better results at all. So what can we do? So I wanted to see how it works. So I said, well, what if we had what I noticed most preschools, 1, 2, 3, 4-year-olds or pre-K don't have is, let's set up like a kind of like a pedagogy. Let's have a theory. Let's have a method. Let's have a philosophy for us and for our teachers that we could say, this is us. even these guys that just want to go home and work on their NSFs in the evenings, or like I said, their characters and drawings or martial arts. Let's give them something for those 8 hours that they're with us to believe in. So we brought in I was friends through one of the organizations I'm with, a famous author who's written, bestsellers all around, not just Japan. And he's a child psychologist, and he believes or not believes in, he teaches the whole child-centered method, which is nothing new. No educator watching this is like, oh my God, what's that? It's a very common thing. It's what we all do pretty much, but most people don't know a lot of the background behind it, or the reasoning behind it, or the deep-seated needs behind it. We understand, yes, of course it makes sense if you let the student teach the class more rather than the teacher talking for an hour, But we said, what if we teach them? What if we make it no borders? Child-centered method is what we do here. Very basic, but give them something to own. These people that have never been taught anything about education. They've been taught how to use this book, what to do after page 12, unit 1, chant 3, but they've never been taught philosophies on children and how their brain works, and the most recent brain research that's been done, and social and emotional intelligence and things like that. So he said, let's start teaching that. Put the curriculum away. That's easy. Once they understand children and how they think, how they operate, how they learn, how they respond. If we can and these are guys that graduated with art degrees, let's say, but if we can kind of get them to understand that it is an exciting thing by nature, it'll take I bet you it was a gamble. I bet you. So we started doing that. So we had trainers come in at the beginning of the year. We brought them in. They helped us design our curriculum and work it to where it was more interactive with the children. We started bringing in a threefold philosophy on social intelligence, emotional intelligence, academic intelligence. So we started laying a philosophy, a pedagogy, a belief system, like a church, if you will, for no borders, of what we want to do with our children, and just teaching that rather than the curriculum. And the teachers bought into it. They kind of, just child-centered learning. They didn't even know what it was, but they were walking around, oh, we do child-centered learning, over time. It's so much to where after the second or third year, we have a 2-week period at the beginning of the year in March before the school year starts, where it's training. Some of the teachers would be like, are we going to have another child-centered learning again? But that actually got them to realize and recognize when I'm up there, oh, maybe I can try this method or do this. It actually, because it was something and it kind of spread like a wildfire. Teachers were talking about it on their own. So we had that, and now they began just by, I don't know what the word would be, but they begin to see themselves for the first time ever, not just in No Border, but for the first time ever as a teacher. And they didn't even know it. They were now practicing modern teaching methods. They were doing things that trained teachers would do.
Right.
Where before it was, okay, guys, let's do sounds fun or sounds great or whatever the book was. Let's read it. They were mimicking what they were taught.
Yeah.
Now they were applying principles that we were teaching them to better their career. And they saw the company investing in that, not just financially bringing in the people, but time-wise and caring-wise, and doing all these little tiny, I call them edu-camps, where it's small little groups of people. And then they started teaching each other through panels and discussions. That became the new norm. And that really kind of fixed one problem of having people at least see themselves a little more. Some, it only helped 5%. Obviously, you can't get them all. Yeah. And some, it really kind of jump-started them, and they were asking me more questions. I even bought some of them books out of my pocket just because they were excited. So I said, yeah, I'll order you some books, and gave them articles just to kind of support them. And that was one of the big things that we had happen within the company probably, 3-4 years ago.
That's fantastic. So we don't have much more time. I wanted to ask you about what is changing in education from your perspective in Japan, not only because of, there's a lot of international schools here, a lot more focus on English, even in public school education, but also because of COVID. Like, how has that affected your ability to do what you're doing? And how do you think that's going to go forward, and how things are going to change because of how much teachers have invested now in learning how to, teach online or teach during COVID? So what do you see happening next?
Well, you say we don't have much time, and then you ask a loaded question like that.
Yeah, as just a sort of broad overview of what you.
I'll talk. I think I could summarize it kind of nicely. Let me try. If not, just edit out all the nonsense. Japan is very different. Japan is truly, not to mean sarcastic, but literally and truly like an island. You know, we always joke around how it's so beautiful and modern in some ways, but yet, you know, we got fax machines and we're just getting debit cards and things like so. It's you know, behind the learning curve in some things and ahead in the others. But the education market in Japan has changed greatly, especially since the government, the Ministry of Education and Science and Technology, MEX, has, you know, lowered the level to where they start English education now. So they've lowered it to lower elementary ages. So they put a huge emphasis on that. And as you know, in Japan, what the government does, the citizens buy into and believe it to be good. So that when they started doing that, people started realizing, oh wow, English is important. And honestly, too, not just with COVID, but with, and I know I sound like an old man saying this, but with globalization and social media and all these things, I mean, the world is just shrinking on a daily basis. It is. You know, Japan's just as savvy as things. They're realizing English is a key. It is important to have it. It is the lingua franca for a reason. You know, it's what the world does business in, and people want to get that skill. So the market is there. You know, we're getting, you know, even with Corona, we've grown over the last 2 years exponentially. Our kindergartens are pretty much sold out at most of our locations. Our Saturday courses have a waiting list. And like I said, and I'll be very clear, we're not the best school out there, man. There's many of my friends that have schools that do certain things better than us, and we do certain things better than them, but they're a fine school and they're the same. They're growing too. So I think it actually did the opposite of what we thought. We thought it was going to hurt us. And it did for those couple months we were shut down, but it actually boosted signups and enrollees and new students, not because of Corona, but just that this whole time, everything was kind of timing with that. As far as the COVID and the online, yeah, it definitely has changed education. It's changed everything. Look at you and I are doing a Zoom meeting. You know, 2 years ago, would have been Zoom. I'm sorry, what's that? We would be on, you know, Skype right now probably, and I'd be trying to still log in or how to figure out how to do it. You know, so yeah, we do online lessons. Everybody's doing universities. I think will be dramatically changed with having that option. I think for my market, it's not so much because you have to have that hands-on interaction. So I think up through, you know, junior high, elementary, probably even high school, not so much. I think colleges will have a long-term effect where you can offer either, you know, synchronous or asynchronous classes. Is definitely something that's going to be a part of the future with that. So I think that's how COVID affected it. And I think the market, though, in Japan is growing. People are seeing the need for it. I think there'll be a lot more international elementary schools and junior highs coming up in the future. I want to focus on just what I know, because I don't know a darn thing about first grade and up. And I like working with the little ones. But the market's definitely increasing. Parents are realizing that they want it more. And they want more than just the Ikawa. You know, they want more than that 1 day a week for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, or 80 minutes. You know, they're realizing the value of
and they know that doesn't
program.
work. They know that it doesn't actually help kids to speak well. So I think a lot of parents are starting to notice that. You know, they've had their kids in an Eikaiwa for 7 years, and they're like, well, he can introduce himself and he can he can say a few sentences, but he can't actually have a conversation with anyone.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking. There's amazing Eikaiwas out there, as you know. We have an Eikaiwa division. You know what I'm saying? That's huge, and you know, and thousands of students. You know, so I'm not knocking that, but I tell people that come to our international preschool or kindergarten, I say, I want to tell you one thing. We are not an English school. I said, when your student finishes here at the preschool at either 3 years old or he finishes the kindergarten at 5 years old, I said, I don't care so much about their English level. I care about their social and emotional development, because that's the key at this age. I say, so please don't come to me. Why is my kid not writing as well as this student? Why is my kid not speaking as well as this one? Why is his English? I said, please don't take this wrong, but I don't care about those. I want to know how your child is socially, how they respond to problems, how they respond to when they're told, no, you can't do that, please don't. How they do those things are the key, because that's going to set them up for the rest of their life. That's the most important thing that no borders can teach them. So I say, yes, we have a full curriculum. We do all these things. It just happens to be in English.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not coming here to learn English skills. You're coming here to learn life skills. And I think that's one of the things that separates us from a lot of schools. Parents that resonates with them.
Mm.
You know, they like that. I'm not trying to push, oh, look at this Aiken score. Look at this. Our students are speaking. Look at, he's quoting
I've never understood the focus on academics at preschools. That's something that I really railed against when I was teaching that age, because I had the same principle as you, that the kids don't need to be doing that, and there's no actually scientifically there's no benefit. If you look, I think there was a study, this is like 10 years ago now, that I saw a study when I was teaching sort of 6 or 7 years ago, that was from the early 2010s, and it said in a long-term study, they found that kids who have academics too early at school, they have no better outcomes in academics when they're in elementary school grade 5, but they hate school more.
Yeah,
that's what it does. It makes kids hate school more. So don't do it. Just don't do it.
That must have been why I hated school so much. I went to a strict school growing up. Probably they tried to push academic. I mean, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, we do have, the business side of what parents' expectations. They do want to have their kid have we got little books, and we do have curriculum times, but I tell the teachers that's not the focus. Let's really work on that social and emotional development of the children and talk through problems, work on things, explain things, let the kids figure it out, and we really do that, and we do balance it with academics. Not a lot, but because I do agree with you, but I think that's really what differentiates us between a lot. And we tell the parents that, and they honestly love it. I tell them, we're a community here. You're not here to get results. You're here to develop, and how can you measure development? You really can't. So don't try to quantify what your student's going to graduate with. Right. His English skill is 9, his mathematics is 10. And what's most important is,
it's more important to see like how happy is the kid, how much do they like their friends, how confident do they feel like with a foreigner in a classroom or at home or whatever it is. And I still have good memories from when I was teaching. I had one really difficult kid who I was warned about him when I joined the school, and that was like my biggest success as a teacher in my whole life, and that's what made it really worth it for me. That school was a struggle for me, but my God, was it worth it to see that kind of impacts that you can have on kids. So I think it's really important. Yeah,
it is. And that's what makes the job rewarding. That's what makes it great. And that's why, I always want to stick in that younger learners. I love this age. I went to school today and a girl, they ran up and she gave me a Valentine's Day thing because she didn't see me Monday. And I don't even know the student that well. She just knows I'm the principal. She visits, I visit them all the time. And she had this little thing, and, it was cute. And I love it. It keeps me young at heart, at least, and it is rewarding. Yeah, I understand your experience.
Yeah. Ken, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So where can people find out more about you or No Borders International School if they want to find out about that?
Sure, yeah. Check us out. Just www.noborders.jp. And you can find all of our information on there and check us out. And if you have any questions, just email us directly on there. We'll take care of you, or check out our website. Yeah. Our YouTube channel.
And people should definitely check. You have jobs on JobsinJapan.com every now and then, so keep an eye out for those ones, because it sounds like it's a good place to work.
Quite a few openings this year. We opened up a couple new lines, and like I said, one of our friends was moving back to their home country. So we just got 3 new people through you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been a pleasure.